And welcome in, everybody, to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. I got Jerry Diorio, the former Wolverine, with us as we are ready to get into it on this holiday weekend. Big game tomorrow. We had a bunch of games yesterday in the pros, including the Lions, and already a coaching change with what happened in that game. And we're ready to dive into it all. Jerry, did you have a good Thanksgiving yesterday?
Great to be a Michigan Wolverine. Always great to be a Michigan Wolverine. So much to be thankful for, living in the greatest country in the world at this period of time in history. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Go Blue.
Yeah, it was a good time had by all over here in Dexter, Michigan, and we saw the Lions. The shoe was on the other foot a lot of times down through the years. That would have been some kind of Lions move at the end of the game. Quarterback not knowing the situation, head coach standing over there, time running out. You're poised to have a big upset, and it didn't happen. And, that's what happened with Chicago today. They fire their coach, Eberflus, and I think everybody after that game was saying they're going to fire their coach, and everybody was right. So that went down. But, Jared, we got the game tomorrow. Of course, we're going to want to get your feelings on that, but there's some big news today and big breaking news about Michigan football, and it comes in the world of recruiting. We know Michigan recently got the commitment of Bryce Underwood for this upcoming recruiting class in 25, and then they had a commitment from a quarterback in the 26 class named Brady Hart. This morning, Brady Hart decommitted and committed to Texas A&M, with the wrinkle that he is going to reclassify into the class of 25, and he's going to be ready to go. What are your thoughts on Hart decommitting and then moving elsewhere?
Yeah, I think you can expect that, especially at the quarterback position. When you see Bryce Underwood coming in, you're looking at a potential of sitting for 3 years or 2 years, however long Bryce Underwood's going to be there. And so, yeah, you're all of a sudden thinking, well, maybe this isn't the best fit for me. And it's all about fit. This young man's making a decision that's based on him and what his needs are and his family's needs are. And you can understand that. You can understand that he's sitting there saying, if I come in now and Bryce Underwood comes in, and oh, by the way, it's an old – it's a hidden secret, maybe, or maybe not so much secret. But Denny, in the NFL, first round, second round, third round draft choices are typically guaranteed their first contract or their first couple years without getting cut. And the reason is because the team has so much invested in them that they can't look bad not playing them. And that's truly some of the rationale. And when this young man sees Bryce Underwood and the amount of money that he's getting, he's going to realize that the coaches are going to look at him more favorably all the time because of the resources spent with him. So this young man is making a decision that he feels is best for him and his family. And you've got to appreciate it. Hey, in 3 years, he might be coming back to Michigan because Bryce Underwood's gone. So that's the nature of college football right now. It's about where do I fit best? Who is going to appreciate my talents most and utilize my talents most? And of course, how much money can I make?
Yeah, there's always a lot at stake and a lot of different things going on, as you mentioned there. But the last thing with money, the game has changed over the last 3 years, but it's changed for Michigan with the Underwood commitment and the amount of money that they promising him up front. Brady Hart, prior to learning that Underwood was getting this money, Michigan had approached things a different way and what they were selling him and how he was going to be able to make money. And now that's changed. And that's a huge difference in what's going on. I would also say and there's reports of anywhere from, 10, 10 and a half, 12, I don't know about, I guess there are reports that, maybe $14 million. And if you're Hart, And before, Michigan was saying, look, you can come in, look at what J.J. McCarthy was making in a year, but they weren't offering him money up front. And if you're a part of Hart's team and you can reclassify, even though he's young for a high school kid now going into the 26th class, but if you have the ability to move everything up a year, you could make a case if you knew Brady Hart that the time to strike is right now. If you can get guaranteed money and you can sign a contract for, I don't know what Hart, he's pretty highly rated. If he can get $4, $6, $7, $8 million from another team, he committed to Texas A&M, you could make the case that, hey, next year, Brady, the NCAA or college football, they're going to have a cap. They're going to have revenue sharing, and there's going to be a ceiling on the amount of money you can make. And it could be, and I say just, it could just be $1 million or $2 million. Wherever you reclassify, you're going to be able to get, who knows, 4 or whatever he's going to be right now. So that's a lot of money, So if you're just looking at it from a money move, then I think it's understandable why you would do something like this.
Well, and I don't think it's just a money issue. I think he's looking at, I guess it is a money issue, meaning that there's going to be this pot of money that's going to either be made or lost by making this decision to come to Michigan or go somewhere else. But he's looking at this situation and he's saying to himself, look, they got all this money invested in Underwood. And obviously that's their guy. That's who they want to go to. And I'm going to look elsewhere and get more money.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not just money. I don't know if he gave a chance for Michigan. If Michigan was like, hey, now we'll give you, $4 million or $8 million, or we'll promise that. Obviously, if you're moving yourself up a year, you're not coming in. You're not going to come in with the number 1 or number 2 player, and you're one of the top 10 players. That just doesn't work, having 2 quarterbacks like that. I know Ohio State's messed around and done some things like that, but it's just not going to work. So going somewhere else, you understand from that standpoint. I think you do. If you're a fan, though, you do. I mentioned Ohio State, and you look at Georgia, you look at USC, you might be able to put another team or 2 in that category. It seems like every year, maybe Clemson, they get 5-star quarterbacks. I mean, not like if we were just talking about it, Jerry, you'd say, it would be nice to have one, Bryce Underwood in 25 would be nice. Whoever the top 1 or 2 guys is in 27 to get him and every 2 years. And then every year coming out and get one of the top 5 quarterbacks in high school. That's there are a few teams that do it. And with Michigan was set up here, people were looking at it and you understand like, hey, Michigan's really got something going right now. So it's a good situation, but you also look and thinking that maybe Michigan was ready to roll like some of these other teams.
Well, I think Michigan is starting to realize that, hey, listen, with this NIL opportunity, we have a potential right now, a time frame right now where we can elevate and separate ourselves not only from some of the Big Ten teams, but also the nation. I mean, we've got the largest alumni network in the country, and that gives us a great advantage. And I think teams in the Southeastern Conference and other teams are gonna start finding this out. And so, the nice thing is we've got the network. We're going to get recruits. We're going to get recruits off the recruits. Bryce Underwood comes in. We get Bryce Underwood because of the alumni. He comes in. Now we're going to start getting some receivers, some linebackers. I'm hearing, right now, from what I'm understanding, before some of the dust settles, we're ranked 8th in recruiting. Well, that's a long time coming. We haven't been that high this early in the recruiting class in a long time. So, it's feeding off itself, and we're just in a very good position right now.
Yeah, we'll see. I know a lot of people thought that the 5-stars were going to start dropping a little bit quicker. It's Wednesday where the early signing period is coming up, so it's rapidly approaching. There's going to be a lot of movement. I don't know, specifically for Michigan, there is a lot of movement going around, and I think you can expect some fruit, coming up before the signing day in the wake of getting Underwood. Let me ask you, Jerry, about Underwood, because there was discussion going on the Maize and Blue Review today in light of this news with Hart decommitting and going to Texas A&M. And there was a thought about Underwood, and we know he's getting the eye-popping money. What do you think the Michigan coaching staff, they are looking at the quarterback position next year? Do you think they told Underwood, hey, we're promising you the starting job. We've given you the moon and stars money-wise, and we are promising you the starting job. That's door number one. Door number two, we're giving you all of this money, and we are promising you every chance to win this starting job and compete with whatever quarterback we bring in. Or three, come on in and compete. There's no problem with you redshirting and being the quarterback one and competing for it the following year. Which one of those three scenarios do you think they were selling to Bryce Underwood?
Well, I think Bryce Underwood's got to be intelligent enough to understand that he's got to learn the game. So for him to think that I'm going to come in on day one and start at a university, a major college university, a Power 4 conference, if you might, and be dominant like I was in high school, I don't think that's very realistic. So I think what Underwood is looking for is what's best, and I would think he's looking at it like this. What's best for me? I need to surround myself with this great offensive line, these receivers and all that. I need a coach. I need a head coach and a offensive coordinator system that's going to fit for me. And so if I'm Bryce Underwood, I'm looking to learn the game, adjust and conflate with my new offensive system, my coordinator, whoever that might be, and my teammates around me, and put the best numbers up there. But I don't think Bryce Underwood should be thinking about, hey, listen, I need to start next year on game one, and that's a good way to get hurt in a career. So I think
maybe you're right, Jerry. That could happen. I would think, and I would hope, and I would guess that Michigan said, we'll promise you a chance to come in and compete. And if Bryce Underwood thinks he's the best quarterback in the country already, he thinks that he can come in and start from day one, well, then that's all I want is the promise that I can come in and compete. Michigan promising, there's some people thinking that Michigan has just promised him the starting job. How are you going to go out in the transfer portal? And if you're going to get a guy, and it doesn't really matter how much you're going to pay him, the first thing they're going to ask is, what kind of chance do I have at being the starting quarterback? You have to say the same thing to, let's just say it's Miller Moss's name gets mentioned the most. You got to say the same thing to Miller Moss as that you're saying to Bryce Underwood. Hey, Miller, you could come in here. We are going to evaluate you every day, and we are going to let you compete every day, and you will know your exact spot within this team from day one, day two, and day three. We will tell you who's going to be the quarterback one, and you can compete with Bryce Underwood. That's what you have to sell. And the other part that you mentioned, like with the pros, you do know if you're the number one draft pick coming in, all things being equal, you might have people picking you because of the money. That's the difference in the way the game 3-4 years ago and for the rest of the recent or the rest of the previous history of college football, it was different. Now you're a $14 million man, you might be getting some benefit of the doubt when it comes down to being the quarterback. I don't know. Are you agreeing with what I'm saying here?
And I kind of think that's what I was trying to say. That's what I was saying earlier when I was comparing college football now in the pros. When the pros draft you that early, they've got a lot of reputation. Remember, these are human beings with careers on the line. They are going to make sure that their guy is promoted as much as possible and give him every opportunity to succeed, because if he succeeds, then you have succeeded. And so that, the old saying, the old strategy was, when you draft somebody high, they're guaranteed those first 3-4 years in the NFL because of the place you drafted them. And there's, that little unknown knowledge that, you're going to have every opportunity to compete. And if you're a little bit behind, we're going to probably put you in there and start you. So, that's all well and good. But at the same time, when you got those kind of resources involved, you're going to make sure those resources are on the field.
All right, Joe, we are going to talk about Michigan and Ohio State tomorrow, I promise. But let me give you one more offshoot to this, because there was a thought with this recruitment still up in the air of Bryce Underwood. Michigan had Carter Smith, the Gatorade Player of the Year, committed to this class, and he's a top 100 quarterback. I mentioned standout last year in the Sunshine State, and then they did have Brady Hart in 26. So they had a top 100. They had Hart, and then the idea is maybe Michigan could take this money, whatever amount of money that they're putting together, and instead of the big splash at quarterback, they could go for linemen, they could go for other players and everything else. We got that. Well, it all changed. They got Underwood, and now Smith's gone. Hart is with Texas A&M, and all their eggs are in the Underwood basket. Now, Jerry, you can go back. Is it worth to you getting Underwood, or would you take the other scenario where you could still have Carter Smith, you could still have Hart, and then seemingly, I don't know if the money that was out there, this just came out of the, seemingly out of the blue from Ellison. You're not sure that you'd have just had whatever it was, $10-12 million to go out there and put somewhere else. But I'm asking you if you would trade Underwood for Carter Smith and Brady Hart, and you could go back, because some people, the genie's out of the bottle now.
Well, here's the thing, Denny. I mean, when I'm looking at this scenario, I'm saying to myself, and I'm in the head spot, I'm saying to myself, who's the best? Who's the best right now? Do I gain one and lose two, but I still get the best? I think that's a good scenario. Get the best. Why? The old Lou Holtz saying, if you got two quarterbacks, you got none. And there were two great quarterbacks that decommitted. They're going to be going somewhere else, but we got the best one. I'll take that scenario and possibly get one of those two quarterbacks in a couple of 3 years when Bryce Underwood is moving on.
Yeah, I think you're right. And if I put it into a pro, at least analogy, and I think this works, you'd say, would you rather have the number one overall pick or number two overall pick and have Bryce Underwood, or would you rather have a 2 seconds? 2 second round picks. Nothing against Hart. Maybe he would be, I'd say a little bit higher, and same thing with Carter Smith. But I think that works, and I think everyone would say, give me the number one overall pick.
I want to take the most talented player. I mean, that's all there is to it. I mean, why would I not take the most talented player and give up these other two that I might be able to pick up later on anyway? So no, I'm going to take the best talent.
All right, the team that has the most talent tomorrow between Michigan and Ohio State. Jerry, Ohio State always does a great job at assembling talent. I would say the last 3 years that Ohio State has had the best talent on the field. Of course, Michigan's won the last 3 years in a row. I think they have more talent tomorrow. Do you think that holds up, and how much of a chance do you give Michigan?
Well, I mean, where do you see the talent? Here, folks, first of all, let's not forget, this game has been identified and defined, I should say, by the running game. And what is it? The last 20-some odd games, the team that has run the ball the best has won this game. And that's what it's going to come down to. Did some fact-finding. Looked up some of the stats this year on this year's team. And, here's the thing that stuck out to me. Ohio State had a great beginning of the season with their run game. They their first 4 or 5 games, over 1,100 yards. Since then, they've only had 800 yards. Okay, they're around 1,900 yards. So their first 5 games, I think one was Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Iowa, and Michigan State, or Michigan State and Iowa. Their first 5 games, you're looking at 1,100 yards rushing the rushing game. And that's significant. That's a tremendous amount. Since that that 5 games, the last 6 games, they're only over 800 yards rushing. When you look at Ohio, teams that gave them problems, Nebraska. Why did Nebraska give them a problem? They ran the ball well. They controlled the tempo. They controlled, basically, they controlled the narrative of the game. They controlled the theme of the game, the clock, and they slowed Ohio State down. That's a huge way of slowing that talented team down. They're a very talented team, throwing the ball with great athletes, but there's a different talent that's going to be at play tomorrow, and that different talent is who can run the ball best. And I'm thinking the team that runs the ball best tomorrow will win this game. You look at Ohio State, hard time against Penn State running the ball. Penn State did very well against Ohio State, and they should have won that game. There was that last goal line stand that Ohio had, I thought was horribly called by Penn State. I never saw anything like that where a big offensive lineman is stationed out at a wide receiver and they move him into motion him in to make a block. Then he never makes a block on because he's not used to it. So, the Penn State game was problematic for Ohio State. Northwestern gave them a problem. Indiana gave them a problem. What came out of those two games was Ohio State's special teams. That's who won those two games. Two big plays against Indiana, that changes the whole outlook of the game. Northwestern, I think, was 7-7 when they made their mistake in the special teams game. So the kicking game is going to be vitally important. That's number 2, in my opinion. The team who runs the ball best is the biggest factor, and the team that plays great special teams is going to be the second biggest factor tomorrow. The weather's going to be in there. When I looked at Ohio, they ended up running the ball for like 4 yards a carry against Indiana. But in the middle of the third quarter, they were under 3 yards a carry. This is a offensive line that's been beat up a little bit. They have two new starters or two new starters and a third in a different spot from last year or from this year. He was the offensive guard. Now he's back to center. So their offensive line has got issues. Their defensive line, great. Sawyer and Tumalua are great edge players. They're great pass rushers. And I was watching the Bear today from Fox News or Fox Sports, and he was talking about Ohio's got all this great talent, and ever since Oregon, they've really picked up on their pass rush and their pass coverage. Well, that's all well and good. But this game is going to be won between the tackles or between the tight ends. And the team that runs the ball has and somebody out there fact check me, I think it's over 20 times. The last 20 times, the team that's run the ball best wins this game. And that's where the talent's going to be most known or most seen that's going to win this game. It's going to be running game, kicking game, and then we're going to see how the weather plays out.
Yeah, I think a little bit of discouraging news in terms of the availability of some players. I would not expect Will Johnson. I don't think people were expecting Will Johnson to play. They were going to be hopeful and happy, obviously, if he did, but it doesn't sound like he's going to go. And then Colston Loveland, there was some optimism earlier in the week, but that has turned completely around. And if I had to make a guess right now, I would say that it is unlikely that we'll see Colston Loveland. So that really puts it Michigan up against it. We always talk about rivalry games, and some people just throw it away and say, hey, it's going to come down to the line play and all these things. And that's all. I think good analysis. What I was just listening to you, it all made a lot of sense. Ohio State they are the favorite to win the national championship right now from all of the odds makers. Before the season, they put the bullseye on themselves and said it was all or nothing. It was win or bust. And this game, even this week, with Ryan Day talking about it's the worst thing in his life, and it really is a snapshot. Jerry, you're from Ohio. You understand this more than anyone else. Michigan fans are into Michigan football, and they live it all year long too. Ohio State fans do all of that, but then you times it by 3 for their just obsession with the team and in Michigan. And I say all this to think if Michigan could have some early success, that crowd would get real tight. And man, it used to happen to John Cooper. He would get real tight. You could see Blackbird Day getting real tight. And the same thing with that entire team and what you're talking about. And it's not like Michigan doesn't have a great matchup with their defensive line against that Ohio State offensive line. So there's the path there. I think having that early success where you can really get in their heads. I don't see Michigan being down by 10 at the half or something and then coming up with some big plays and winning it. I see Michigan having some early success and then really tightening up that crowd and tightening up Blackbird.
There's one other key that I didn't point out, and I should have, Denny. Michigan has got to get home with 4 guys. They have got to be able to put pressure on Smith with 4 players covering with 7. I think we have seen over the last few weeks that our defense has gotten much better because we are rushing and getting home with 4. I mean, Stewart's having a phenomenal year. Graham is having a phenomenal year. Grant is not getting home as much, but how many block passes does he have? TJ Guy has probably outperformed Moore, who's had a good year. Moore's had a good year, but TJ Guy has come home. So, we've got and Benny. Don't forget Benny. Benny's got a few sacks in there too. So if we've got, like I said earlier, we've got to win the running game, and I'd like to win that by a lot. We've got to establish the run. We've got to win the turnover battle. That's definite. We've got to be able to get home with 4 people, and this special teams is going to be huge.
What about the people here, Jerry? I was just seeing it from Michael, seeing it from Rico. They're talking about the passing offense and then specifically the Michigan quarterback. How are you finding the enthusiasm for a Michigan upset, having watched the quarterback position from Michigan this year?
Well, I tell you, Davis Warren has played very well the last few games. I mean, I thought he played particularly well against Northwestern this week. And even against Indiana, he made some great throws. He's made throws all year long, not just against Indiana, not just against Northwestern, but all year long. He's made those tough, hard throws from the one hash to the opposite sideline and hit those receivers. Now, with Loveland out, that's a huge loss. It's going to be it's going to be a factor in the passing game. There's no question about that. But will the passing game matter that much, especially if the wind is swirling and the weather is a little bit difficult tomorrow? We're going to find that out.
We will read the last 3 comments, and you don't have to have it's always nice to have I think they call it a premium or super comments, but any comment you leave, we'll read the next 3 in closing, and let's get our final thoughts on this game. I think back, and it used to be from, I don't know, since I started watching Michigan when Rob Lytle was playing in the late 70s. He was an All-American in every sense of the word, and, he would fire me up for this particular game. And I think he's from Ohio as well, isn't he? Old Rob Lytle. Yeah, that's right. And then all the way up until 2007, I always felt like Michigan had a chance in every single game that they played, and every season it felt like if they had a bounce or 2, things would go their way. Well, then it's been a little different. And these last 3 years reminded me of, those first, 35, 40 years. And that stretch culminating with a national championship. It's great to look back on. And I think Underwood and the changing of how Michigan is approaching things, I think the future is bright. I don't feel so great about the game tomorrow. I love your enthusiasm and your points, Jerry. You're not just grasping at things. You were giving us tangible things to look for, how Michigan can pull this upset. I don't see it. I think Ohio State is out for blood and revenge, and they're pouring so much into this. And
that lasts for a couple plays, maybe 2 plays, okay? After that, it's who plays the game. All the emotion, I remember my father once told me when I was a little tight playing football, and it stuck with me my whole life. It's that first play. Then all the butterflies are gone, and then we're playing football. Just a little one last little stat, Denny. What was the spread when Michigan won in 69 and 1996? They were both over 20, weren't they?
They were big. I know 24-12 was the score at halftime of the 69 game, and that ended up being the final score. And I think 13-9, 13-7, whatever it was in 96. Yeah, they were a big favorite then. So, okay, now Michigan's a 19.5-point underdog in this one.
I'm going with Michigan to win this game on the road, shock the world, run the ball, play great special teams, and get home with 4.
I love it. Let's get those last 3 comments that we talked about. Maurice says, I asked you about the offense and specifically the quarterback. Maurice going back to 2021 saying that Michigan won with Cade McNamara. That's a pretty good point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, all the receiver stuff, all the quarterback stuff, that's all nice and good, and it's making these defensive coordinators prepare for all this. But at the end of the day, the team that runs the ball best in this game wins at high noon.
Adam says they're going to try to screen us to death to slow our defensive line and make our linebackers and DBs tackle from sideline to sideline. And he wants to know where the black bird came from. I meant to say black beard. I saw Wojo today in his column calling Ryan Day Blackbeard, and I have screwed up and called him Blackbird. Blackbeard is what I meant. And if I've called him Blackbird the whole time, I think I caught myself once, and maybe I was doing it.
I thought you said Blackbeard, but I might have misunderstood you too.
Well, I know I screwed it up once, and then I corrected myself, and then I thought, is that what I was saying the whole time? And that would be on me. That would be a fumble, and that would be it. So here is the final.
And you know what, Denny? That's a great point, because this guy has, what is he, 1-3 against Ohio. He's made one statement, and since then he's 0-3. And oh, by the way, our coach beat him the last time they faced each other. So he's got a lot of pressure he just put on himself.
He does have a lot of pressure on himself. Maybe he's going to use what you said, Jerry, after the first play. That's not going to matter. All right, Rico gets the final point here, and he says he's asking a question. Which running back gets the most carries? Lord knows our coaches don't seem to know which running back is better. Go ahead, Jerry. Give us your guess on the running backs and how they divvy up the snaps. I will remind you. You know this, Jerry. You know this that 2 years ago, Donovan Edwards had this game of a lifetime, and so I would like to get Donovan out there involved in some things. There would be nothing that would shut up all those truck drivers more than getting a long touchdown from Donovan Edwards in the early going. I mean, that really could change the complexion of the game. Meanwhile, I think they should be getting it to Bigfoot, Khalil Mullings, the most. But how do you see it?
Like I said, I'm not sure how they're going to divvy up the carries. Yeah. But I'm looking for Edwards to have a big game. I'm looking for Donovan Edwards to have a big game, a typical big game Donovan Edwards type play. But I'm also looking for Mullins to put his shoulders down and run some people over. I think Mullins has had a great game the other day against Northwestern, and I think both of our running backs are going to have nice days tomorrow, Saturday.
Yeah, it is tomorrow, Jerry. Look at that. Just how close we are.
Hey, I'm in California right now, Denny. I'm all screwed up on my time zone.
I should point out that 2 years ago, Khalil Mullings threw that blind 4th and 1 pass. So Michigan getting into their bag of tricks. They do have a bag of tricks there, and the Don is known to actually pull one out as well and throw the ball. So there you go. That's it. All right, Jerry, it's great to be on with you here. And Mullings will be Haskins 2.0. He had 4 or 5 touchdowns a couple of years ago. So there you go.
Hail to the victors, Denny. Great to be a Michigan Wolverine. I'm picking. Denny, I put money down on Michigan to win outright.
Money on Michigan outright. There you go. That's Jerry Diorio. We will talk with you tomorrow after the game. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review right now. So long, everybody. Thanks for watching, and